We should mention again this important point of sacrament. Every week it's made available. In the ancient world, table fellowship or having a meal with people was crucially important. In the ancient world, you wouldn't have meals with your enemies. You would have meals with those that you are bound to in a covenantal relationship with, that you're at peace with. So consider this. Every week, God invites you into his house to have table fellowship. Every week, he declares, I'm not at war with you. I am at peace with you. I am serving you the emblems of my peace. And I invite you to also demonstrate that you're not at war with me by receiving these emblems of peace. And every week, no matter what we've done, we've all failed during the week. God knows it. But he's saying, it's okay. I want to stay in relationship with you. And please demonstrate that you also are working and making effort to stay in relationship with me, even though you're not perfect. You need to practice to get better. And the only way to practice is to deal with failure. And I have given you an opportunity to have that failure blotted out every single week. It's so simple and so powerful.
It is so powerful. Now, as you look at the rest of chapter 8, so from verse 8 through verse 13, it might be beneficial for you in your scriptures to do a deeper dive and mark every time you see the word covenant and take it personally. Don't read this from arm's length and picture antiquity, picture saints 2,000 years ago learning these principles. Picture the relevance, the sense of timeliness and urgency for us today in the assignments that we've been given by God to gather all of the people that we possibly can on both sides of the veil into this covenant with God and jointly with us. So look at starting in verse 8. For finding fault with them, he saith, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Back in the second half of the Old Testament, remember, you had the split kingdom, the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah. And he's saying that covenant that was given originally to Abraham and then renewed with Isaac and Jacob, it's for all of the house of Israel. And then he says, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, the Mosaic covenant, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind. Pause here. You'll notice what's happening in the spreading of the gospel today, in our day. I could be totally wrong on this, but it's my observation, it's my assumption that we have more people who are learning more of the scriptures and more of the words of God and listening more to the prophets and apostles, seers and revelators than ever in the history of the world. That's my perspective. Look what he says here. God is going to put his laws into their mind and write them in their hearts. And what does that lead to? Look at the wording here. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. That nutshell definition of what the Abrahamic covenant and every covenant that's ever existed at the bottom layer of all those details of the covenants, you find that statement. I will be your God, you will be my people. That's what all covenants are, they're these connecting points between heaven and earth, which now brings you to verse 11.
Yeah, I love how he goes on and says, because this knowledge will be spread everywhere, and they shall not teach every man his neighbor. So essentially, we won't need missionaries anymore, or even Sunday school. Now, we're not there yet, but eventually, because they will know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. And this next verse, one of my favorites, very well worth marking. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. God is not saying, oh, and by the way, I'm going to be so surprised when you guys make mistakes. I'm going to be really fed up and angry and upset. He says, no, I will be merciful. I will be merciful. Remember, chesed, this ancient Hebrew word, is the essence of this covenant, that it is God's loving kindness and mercy that he extends unfailingly and everlastingly to you, no matter what you've done, where you are, no matter your station in life. That is the gift that God has promised. His end of the bargain is to always offer you mercy. And like when we go to the sacrament table, we receive those peace offerings, and in return, we obligate ourselves to him in relationship. That's all he wants. He wants to be in relationship with us.
I love this. And often we as human beings, we complicate things. We make them more complex than they need to be, or we overemphasize certain attributes of the gospel and minimize others. I love the simplicity of this covenant as it's outlined from verse 8 through verse 13, to the degree where every time I go to the sacrament meeting and those priests kneel down and bless the emblems of the sacrament, and the deacons deliver that to the congregation, it's an opportunity for each of us, for me and you, to make a new covenant again. But what is it? Sometimes we want to be better. We want to be more engaged in keeping our gospel covenants, our gospel commitments, keeping the commandments better. But we sometimes don't know how. I'm a big fan and a firm believer in that simple yet profound statement by President Boyd K. Packer years ago, when he said, "True doctrine, understood, changes attitudes and behavior. A study of the doctrines of the gospel will change behavior quicker than a study of behavior will change behavior." So instead of focusing on the surface, I love this because it gets us down into the heart of the matter to say, when I'm sitting in a sacrament meeting, or when I go to the temple, instead of treating going to church and going to the temple as just socially acceptable things for a member of the church to do to check off a box, but rather to say, I am going to make a covenant. I'm going to connect with God. And what does that mean? It means as I'm sitting there in sacrament meeting or in the temple, my thoughts can be elevated to the degree where I'm saying, "Dear God on high, I want thee to be my God, and I want to be thy faithful son. But I'm not very good at this. Please help me. Please forgive me. Please strengthen me. Help me to be an instrument in thy hands to reflect thy love, thy goodness, thy light into as many lives, into as many corners as I can, to be a mediator for thy goodness in this covenantal connection that I'm not just renewing, but strengthening every time I go to the temple, every time I go to the sacrament table." These are powerful, powerful verses to study deeply on your own.